For reaction to this massive verdict, we're joined live by criminal defense lawyer Monty McGregor. So you probably saw it on Twitter or maybe right on CP24. Not guilty on all counts in the death of Jeffrey Northrup. What was your reaction to that?
My reaction was that this is the appropriate verdict. Phil, I can tell you, I'm watching this case extensively all morning by Zoom since the lawyers are entitled to watch. And I can tell you it was emotional for everybody involved. And I think you have to go back to the very first statement of Nader Hassan, the defense lawyer for Mr. Zameer, saying, do not compound a tragedy with an injustice. And from my view, speaking to all of my colleagues that have been heavily watching this case because it's so intense, and it's Crown attorneys, defense lawyers, other people that cover cases in the media felt that there was a real chance for an injustice here if he had have been convicted. And I think even Anne Malloy stressed that when she said to him, I apologize for everything you've been through here. So to me, I think the right decision is made based on watching all of the evidence in the case.
And so what was it that you felt that, this is the right call by the jury?
Well, accidents happen. And I mean, I do a lot of murder cases myself, and usually you're looking at maybe lowering the level of culpability to ensure that if somebody's guilty, they're guilty of the right thing. Here, as it played out, this is an absolute tragedy that unfolded in mere seconds, where Mr. Zameer responded to activity around him that gave him fear for himself and his family, his 8.5-month pregnant wife and his 2-year-old son. To me, our justice system is supposed to find people guilty, not because you look at the consequences and look backwards. You look at their actions and you determine whether or not they should be legally responsible. And here, the jury, quite appropriately, and as I said, most of my colleagues, Justice Malloy made it very clear that his actions, although tragic, are not unlawful. And that's critical, because what we were looking at here was the potentiality for not only somebody going to jail, but what would be a legal injustice and somebody that would have been wrongfully convicted. So I think justice was served today. The defense did an incredible job marshaling this case. Alex Hine and Nader Hassan and the Crown attorneys did what they could to try and put forth their case. But clearly, I think everybody's viewpoint at the end of the day is that justice has been properly served.
I got to ask you, I'm not a lawyer. I am not even close. People always talk about how, at least with manslaughter, there's no intent there. If I knock somebody out in the street, they came up to me, I felt threatened, I knocked them out, they fall down, hit their head on a fire hydrant, they die. And we've seen cases where people get charged or convicted of manslaughter. So he was fearful for his life. He made the maneuvers he made with the vehicle. Unfortunately, tragically, immense tragedy that a police officer had died. So what led to the point where he's innocent on all counts?
I think what's critical is you have to look at all of the specifics of every single case. And that's what people fail to realize. Like a legal education, one of the best benefits is you start to determine that, things aren't black and white. It's not like an on and off switch. You have to look at every case individually. And I think the jury struggled with that for days because of the magnitude of what they were dealing with here. And so what you see is, if, for example, the Crown was trying to assert fairly heavily that Officer Northrup was visible when Mr. Zameer drove the car, and the 3 eyewitnesses, the 3 police officers testified that. However, that evidence was contradicted wholly by the surveillance captured within the parking garage, as well as the 2 experts that testified saying, look at the objective evidence. There were no dents or marks at the front of the car. There was no even what's called dusting, where somebody goes beside a car, like touches a car to remove that. That was all on the side of the vehicle. And based on where that was, those 2 experts concluded that Officer Northrup was very likely in a blind spot. And you'll know, Phil, if you're a driver, that as you look out the front, if you're sitting in the driver's seat and you look out to the left, you're not going to be able to see your front left tire, the driver's side tire. And that's likely where Officer Northrup fell as he was brushed backwards as Mr. Zameer was driving. So those specifics are what you'd look at to determine what Mr. Zameer was thinking at the time. Did he know that Officer Northrup was there? The jury clearly accepted that he did not, and that gels with the evidence of the experts and the video surveillance. And importantly, he was driving 17 kilometers an hour at a time when he ran over him. And that's still, a little bit faster than you should move in a parking lot, but that's him trying to flee as opposed to trying to dangerously take someone's life. And the jury looked at that and concluded after a lengthy deliberation, that it was an act that he engaged in out of fear. He responded, and the driving, given the circumstances, wasn't dangerous, and he should be not guilty.
Now we're also hearing from the other side. We're hearing from Constable Northrup's wife, or at least being painted a picture of their reaction. Also the chief of police. Is there a legal response to this that could happen to this, like an appeal of some sort?
You can look at usually with an appeal with the jury, since you don't know how they made their determination, because they're not allowed to talk about what it was that they deliberated over. Typically what you'd look at is the way the case was administered and whether Justice Malloy, in charging, that's the lengthy instruction that she gives to the jury at the end of the case about the law to apply, whether or not that was done properly. So I watched this case from start to finish, and I don't think that will be an applicable issue here. There is, of course, civil remedy. So the family could sue Mr. Zameer. It's a lower threshold for responsibility there. You might know O.J. Simpson obviously was initially acquitted of killing Nicole Brown Simpson, but lost the civil case because there's technically a lower threshold there. That could happen. I mean, the sad thing about cases like this, and I do a lot of murder trials, is that usually a court case isn't designed to emotionally put somebody back together. It's to find legal culpability. And often the answers that you seek don't really come from a court case other than determining someone's responsibility. And I think they can take those routes and those remedies. But at this point, as I said, I think most people watching this, including Justice Anne Malloy, think justice has been delivered appropriately. It's a sad tragedy, and that's what everybody's left with.
All right, Colonel Defense Lawyer Monty McGregor, thank you so much for your insight on this. Always appreciated throughout this case.
Excellent. Thanks for having me, and good day. Thanks now.
Likewise.